I think that's probably, I mean, for me, if having someone with that theory is important, that's something I don't have, is the theory part of it. For that particular reason, in the songwriting process, it's like you can add those there's certain feelings to your point. It's like it's happy, sad at the same time, but how the heck are you doing that? Like what? How can you do that and understanding the theory? So talk a little bit about, because you mentioned it already, agony of of the leaves. And also, I mean, there's a couple of bands. I just love the names, by the way, and I'm sort of interested in how you come up with some of these names of the acts you've been in, and maybe you can walk me through that a little bit.
Well, Violent Lila, when I went to X, that one's off this. Yeah, it's off this book. Couple copies. So our roommate at that time, Corey Stone, I was writing stuff for creative writing, the courses at St. Mary's, and I gave them to his mother. Was our guidance counselor in high school, and his father was our phys ed teacher, and I think he went on after I left to be the principal. And so I gave them my stories to check out because they were teachers, and I think they found it pretty out there. And so they gave me this book. I think this is the first copy. It's pretty beaten up. Robert Percy, Zen and Motorcycle Maintenance.
Oh yeah, of course.
Which I found out later on was a super famous book, but it changed my life. It was the first book I read. I was like, someone thinks like I think. I couldn't believe it. I never read anything where you're kind of going through university and you're young, and you're thinking, you're having all these thoughts, and people you're hanging out with just at parties drinking. Yeah, no, jocks, like they're not thinking like this.
No.
And I'm walking around passing out lyrics that are pretty out there. So when I read it, I remember I brought it back, and she said it's pretty hard to understand, or you find it weird. I said I loved it, and I read it. I reread it quite a bit. And then the second book, the sequel of that, is this Lila. And in the book, the main character Lila is super violent and just off the wall, and so like that's why I came up with that name, Violent Lila, for that band.
Love it.
And then the for Agony of the Leaves, like I'm always reading, and that's the first degree I took in Teachable, like for teaching high school English. But I love turns of phrases and just really cool words, or when like that's the bad part about streaming, you don't have the liner notes. But if you looked at like Eddie Vedder's liner notes, or Gord Downey of the Hip, especially if they put in the liner notes when they're handwritten. So he would do stuff where he would, I think in Daughter, the song on verses, he said violets, but if you go into the liner notes, it has VOI, and then in brackets it's lens. So it's you're hearing both violets and violence, and he drags it out so it could be. And I was like, man, it's so cool they think of this stuff. And come up with that stuff. And so I'm always looking for cool terms. And Agony of the Leaves is the scientific term for when you pour boiling water on tea leaves. And
Really?
Cool. Yeah.
I didn't know. I wouldn't have guessed that. See, that's what I love about hearing about, especially band names. I mean, you hear all these stories about different band names, like Pearl Jam, for instance. You were talking about that a little bit. I mean, how it came about and how that name came to fruition. And it's like I think about those things all the time. It's like, how do I come up with something? I mean, I've been in a few bands myself. I mean, not original bands. That's something that I always wanted to do, and I know you're doing it, and I love that originality. Now, when it comes to like songwriting, do you guys all songwrite together, or is there times where you're just off on your own? You bring your idea to a team, for instance, or is that how it works?
Well, when we were in the main band, when they were all up here. So two of the guys, the twins, Nathan and Paul McGraw, I went to high school with them, and they've moved back to Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. And so when we lived together, and Dave Dow is the other member, and he's still here. He works at the high school, and he's the plus one, the bromance I'm bringing to the Junos with me. But he's won like best engineer in the North. And he's basically we both started recording together because we got an arts grant to do our first album, and the guy that was recording it just kind of destroyed it. And by the time I got to the guitar parts, I told Dave, I said, I don't think I want to do this with this guy anymore.
No, I hear you.
I said, why don't we? Because it was bad. He was out of his element. I don't think he had recorded a full he recorded himself a lot, and his albums, I heard them, they're well done for his style. But we were a full rock band. So we decided to buy. At first, I think Dave was hesitant, and I said, "Why don't we just buy the M box off eBay?" And then that was a disaster. The first one I got was broken. The guy deleted his account when I tried to return it, so it was out of $300. And then we played a gig, used that money for the next one, and then for a while we were doing it all at my house. We learned the process, and then when we had kids, Dave has 4 kids, but they're older. And then when we had kids, it's just you can't record them running around this. We're in the basement, you can't record. So he's moved it all to his place, and he has it all sound treated, and he's flat out every day after school he's recording. I think next year he'll probably just migrate right to that. And he won the award up here when they had the music awards up here for recording. And he plays with tons of bands. So when we all lived together, we would all write or just bring ideas to each other. But we all would sing. So each person would sing their own songs. And we were big into harmonies. Like Dave was really big into arranging harmonies and stuff. And I wasn't singing then. And I was like, if I'm writing a song, I should be singing them. So I took voice lessons for 3 years. And I've taken voice lessons with Brian Byrne of I, Mother Earth. And I'm going to take a few more with him. And then I take the main ones with Sarah Ramsey with her school. She's Josh Ramsey of Mariana's Trench.
Of course.
And she has an awesome 2 podcasts, one on holistic and healing and doctors come on the show, and then one on the complete music industry, the Vocal Lab. And now it's really good because she's doing this where she's filming it. And she's had they know everybody. Like their studio is the one that they record the Black Album in, Metallica.
Oh man!
And they've done vocal lessons with Steven Tyler and AC/DC, with Brian of AC/DC and stuff like Brian Johnson. So just some of the tips are just fantastic. And so the last time I did a lesson, and when I had a lesson the other day with her. And she said, it's been about a year and a half. I was like, year and a half? I think COVID like messed up my mind for time or something, like just all the regulations. Because I was like, I kind of took everything she did. And then I started going to this jam in town that was pretty seedy. It used to be like a really nice spot. And my friend really built it up over a year. And like the first day, there's police coming in, peeling people off the floor and throwing them out. And I was like, I'm going to start going to this all the time. Like in that movie where Jeff Healey's is a Roadhouse, he's behind the
and he's in that. That's right.
Yeah. So I was like, I'll keep going to this, and if I could put over these kind of grunge, dark, somber tunes of mine on this type of crowd, then if I have a crowd that's receptive to this type of stuff, it'll be easy. And it took about a year, but it was exciting to go in and like there'd be guys paying people to play "Free Falling" by Tom Petty right before me. And then I come in with an original. So you got to think differently. And you would know this from playing solo because I was playing in bands and then went the other way. Like you get like I like the pressure, but it's like a lot on the head to go like I got to figure out how to get this over on this crowd. And then I started like during COVID, I just mostly focused on vocals and stuff. I'd be down in my basement. I usually go down from like about 9 till midnight, or I stay up. I never sleep, so I'm up every night working it, but it was mostly vocals. And then, like you said, you just turned 50. I also turned in September there, and you're down there after this long journey of music, and I'm like, I'm a grown man here in the dark with my iMac as the light, and I've got my guitar, and I'm playing the tunes I love, like from that grunge era, that type of style. And does anybody care? It's like,
I know. I get you. Like,
it's your head.
Well, you almost have to be. It's kind of funny. I always find original music, and I love original music, and I don't know if I have any songs that are worth sharing, but I can tell you this: the first love of those songs comes from yourself. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, and if you have that, and it not that it doesn't matter what other people think, but it kind of doesn't matter. You know what I mean? In some ways, it's like, because if you're doing it to play, and to your point there, it's like, and I've been a musician, a people pleaser when it comes to music my whole life. When I was playing music, like the Free Fallins and all those ones, but the feeling of satisfaction that I have playing original music far exceeds that audience feedback. You know what I mean? For me, it's like, I feel that I've done something, I've created something, and I really want to share that. I hope they're receptive, and a lot of times they're not. And you can attest to that, Stephen. It's like sometimes it's like, and it's your own thoughts, what you've come up with, your own music that you've come up with, and it's like those are it's very difficult because it is. It's like how do you do this and have the confidence to an
Yeah.
audience, and it's about that. It's like it comes down to why you're doing it first and foremost, and if it's to go through the songwriting process and share your thoughts with other people, and hopefully there's that one or two or maybe thousands out there that can relate to it. At the end of the day, I think it still has to come down to yourself, and you know what I mean. At the end of the day, like, is that hit your nerve?
Oh yeah, that's it. Because and you have lots of originals that this is interesting because like during that time when I was really learning those first few chords, and
Hmm.
I thought about this like during COVID because we had so much time. COVID was fantastic for me. I don't want another another virus to come through, but the amount of time I got to play me and to play music and really think about how deep I could go on an album because
Mm.
like I talked to the band about this. I said we went deep, but I think just the experiences I had playing that kind of hardcore jam and stuff, and
Mm.
during COVID, I said there's so much deeper I could go vocally, and it's really hard. Like you really are exposed, and then you have to just like you have to accept like this is my like I said these are my ideas, this is my stance, and they might not get it, and
Yep.
they might not. And as we get older, like we're playing, like I'll look out and I'll be like, man, there's like people here that are in their 20s and everything. I never feel old. I always feel young in my head. But I was like, they didn't go through the grunge era. I remember like being on the
No.
floor in St. Mary's and telling people like we didn't have a Zeppelin. And then around the time when Cobain became really big, and then the suicide and all that stuff, I was in the middle of it, and I think it was the third Alice in Chains album or Versus came out, Pearl Jam, and no, Super Unknown came out,
Mm.
and I don't know who I said that to on the floor, like Chris Scotto or Vaughn Woodruff. I said, man, I think we're in the middle of our own Led Zeppelin thing here. And
Agreed.
now it's super obvious that it really was. But when you're playing and you're looking out, like I'll be playing a Pearl Jam cover or my own stuff that has that flavor to it, and you realize these they haven't they might not even listen to that. They might not have been they probably started at 2010. And
Yes.
so unless they're hardcore in the music, they're not good. I went back to Zeppelin and all these the Doors and stuff because I was super into music, Pink
Yep.
Floyd, but they might not travel backwards, and it's consumed so differently now. But what I found like because I used to go around and collect tapes. I still have a tape of yours of originals with skydiving for nickels on it, and
That's right.
like I have a milk crate. I think it's in my storage. It has like it's stuff from you, stuff from Jimmy Swift. I used to tape their bring a recorder and record their jam
Yeah.
nights. Stuff from Carlo Spinazzola.
Oh
Like
wow.
really, his first album was just fantastic. Um, like I was like collecting all this stuff because I was super fascinated with people that could um, just be out there and be free. And what I've learned from it is like I had someone come up to me and say like you need to maybe you should like they're into meditation all this stuff, and
Hmm.
it's like you could get into meditation. And my sister she has a she runs like acupuncture and Reiki and all that stuff in
Yep.
Halifax, and she's down in Bedford, and she was saying like, oh, here's some meditation things, and I said, but I don't think you realize like we're on stage. That's what we're doing. Like you cannot play with a band, especially when it's a jam band. Like we would write songs, but we would jam them out. Like some of our jams every night would be 50 minutes. Like
Oh
I'm big
wow.
into fit, so we'd be playing like a song that on Spotify is that we've recorded is 5 minutes or three
Yep.
minutes, but we jam it out live for about at least 20. And then some. There's one song, "A Glass of Beer and Sunrise," that was always 50 minutes.
I love
They
that.
would come up the bar would say, "We got one song left." Yeah, no problem. And we play a 50-minute song. It goes
No.
through all different things, and you have to be so present to
Yes.
everything. You have to be present to like the audience is like on one back burner over here. the bass player, like, and we're listening to heart, like it's pure meditation. And then when it becomes super, like when you said it becomes super addictive, because we were playing the first 5 years up here 100 shows a week. So we play Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and any other gigs, festivals, or where we could get. But we were basically practicing on stage. We're all teachers, so we would practice, except for Paul. We always say he followed in the footsteps of Jesus. He's a carpenter. So so we would practice these jams on stage. We'd write a song that night. Maybe me and Nate might write together, or me and Paul, or Dave would come in with something, and we'd run through it at the apartment before the show and say, let's just jam it out and see where it goes. And we record. This is a big thing I think for any musicians. I do it with my band classes here.
Mm-hmm.
You record everything. So with band classes, they start here in grade 5. I'll record them usually once a week, just on my phone. And at the end, we'll do a time lapse where we'll listen for the whole year. So because you can't hear yourself getting better a lot of times, because it's so subtle, and increments are just. And they're like, I sounded like that. I'm like, especially when they get to grade 12, if they listen back to grade 5, they can't believe it. So we recorded every. Nate's kind of the archivist. He goes through them, and we record all the shows, and we have stacks of CDs. And we got into the habit. We'd finish at 2 a.m, come back to the apartment, and you're wired. Like,
yeah, of course.
So we would say, hey, want to listen to the show? So we just played for 5 hours, and me and Nate would sit there, and we'd listen to the whole thing, and we'd be like, "That was cool what you did on that." And we started keeping notes. I'm like, that could be actually in the final gelled version that we put on Spotify or something like that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, recording a show is
it's like a running diary or something, like.
Yeah.
And we did it. I remember at the time it was a good story, but Headley came up here and had a jam with us. They headlined a festival. It used to be good to say that we opened for them, but
yeah.
not so much now.
He's been tarnished a little bit there.
Yeah. So I remember they were like, "You're recording," and I said, "Yeah. Do you mind? We're just going to leave it on for the 5 acts." And I said, "We can send you the recording." And they, I think it was Faber Drive. They're like, "Oh, we never thought to." I said, "We record every show because."
Oh my God.
And one great thing that my guitar professor at X said, I had Tom Daniels and Al Sutherland, but Tom had said it one time. He said people sometimes get irritated when they're recorded, or it's put on YouTube. They'll be like, "Oh, I sucked at that show," or whatever. But he said, like, if you accept that that's exactly what you sounded like on April 28th of 1993,
yeah,
then you can go to the next one. And it just it clicked in my head. I was like, yeah, he said, and you had a cold that day, so your voice was like, that's exactly, no matter if they recorded it or not, that's what you sounded like that day. And that acceptance, I was like, I became a lot more free on stage. I'm like, okay, I made a mistake there. It's not the studio. So and then you can just like kind of flow and float, and a lot of cool things start to happen because you're not in your head. It's the worst thing to be. And
that's exactly.
Like, with vocals, like, you're trying so hard to stay in pitch, and so that's keeping you from being free. So then I started going, well, that's where you work on your technique so hard that you can not have to think about that aspect.
That's right. That recess this morning will be outdoors.
This is great.
Morning will be outdoors.
Well, that's good to know.
So if it's minus 30, or if it's minus 30 or minus 31, we keep them in. And if it's minus 30, they go out. So we check on the weather channel, Canada Weather Channel, and so it can get squirrely. They can be inside. I think we're the biggest school in the north. There's like almost close to 700 kids here, kindergarten to 7.
Wow.
And then and we have 3 schools in our district, and then there's 4 or 5 in the public district. So it's a lot of schools up here. But so they can be inside, like even a couple of weeks ago, it was down to like with wind chill, like minus 59. So the kids are inside for like 3 months at a time, and you can just feel the energy, like you'd feel it in the school. And then when they find this is the first week they've gotten to go. I think yesterday was the first day they got to go outside. So they're just like, like losing it,
just vibrating. I can understand that.
In the bathroom, like, yeah.
Well, that's exactly. Yeah, maybe we can dive into that a little bit too, Steve. Maybe like what what sets you, like, I know, I guess we didn't really mention it earlier, but I know this is the the 3-time nominee for Juno. Maybe tell me first and foremost, what's that like? How's that feel?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because it's through Music Counts, and so Music Counts is like a charity organization that is their main thing is to try to get as many instruments and music programs into schools across Canada.
Hmm.
So you can apply for different grants, and like young artists can apply for grants, schools can apply for grants. So I applied like way back a couple times, and when I got one, it was for like to buy new instruments. My books, like my music, it's the standard band book that all band teachers use. Standard of Excellence, the Red
Hmm.
Book. They look like they've been run over by a truck. So I got money to buy some new. I was having problems with a lot of my saxophones and trumpets. Get those fixed, and I fix almost everything I can. But we're pretty far up here. We're about 18 hour drive from Edmonton, so
Wow.
you can't buy the screws for flutes at Canadian Tire or something. So sometimes I'll have to fix stuff with a paper clip, like twist it to hold the screw together, different things. But they get out of line and stuff, and the keys get all kind of wonky. So I started. Part of the grant was to fix instruments, so I can send them to Edmonton,
Hmm.
and they'll fix them and then send them back. Because most schools down south, like when I taught in Nova Scotia there in Anganish, you would just send it down the street. Or schools in Edmonton have a bus that comes around from a music store. They pick up the instruments at different times of the year. They fix them. They bring them back.
Yeah.
So it's pretty organized. So then after that, Nick Godso of Music Counts called. He said, "Well, now your name can go in for a Juno." And I'm like, there's Junos for this." So I was like, okay. And so my administration put in letters of support, and then the first one was during COVID. So I remember like Justin Bieber was on. He did a performance on the screen, but everybody was watching it from home.
Hmm.
And then the second one was in Edmonton, and so that's like an hour and 20-minute flight from here. And so I went down there and I brought Vaughn Woodruff, who because I gone down to Vaughn and I had gone to Alice in Chains and Dallas Green of City and Color a couple of years before that, and then we
Hmm.
had Rage Against the Machine tickets. And this is even funnier because I remember one time you went to them, and you had
Yes.
told me like the energy was so nuts, and I wasn't even into Rage then, but it stuck in my head. I was like, Jeff's really into country, and he's talking about this like hardcore rap rock band. So I went and bought all their CD. I found some of their CDs at a store, and I said I'll try them. And just I was like, man, this stuff is off the chain. It's unbelievable. And so when they reunited, I I called Vaughn. He lives in Winnipeg. I said we got to go, and we got tickets. And then COVID hit within weeks, I
Oh,
think, after that. And then the tickets stayed on your visa, and then they came back, and then I think Zach De La Rocha jumped off something. And he tore his Achilles
that's
immediately.
right. Yep.
And then now it's like the tweets and stuff are saying like I think the drummer said they're not. I tried to make it work, or something's going on that they probably won't. It won't happen again.
It's so
Yeah,
I've never thought about life. It's kind of interesting and legacy. I think that's
yeah,
something that I'm coming into now is that legacy feeling. What is it that I want to leave behind? And I'm that's one of the things that I'm always going to ask on this podcast is like, what is it that for you that you hope to leave the next generation, like, and that's what you're doing. You're right in the middle of it. You're in the middle of the minds are fresh and they're new and they're entering into music. It's got to be, I mean, it has its challenges. I can just imagine as well, like a group full of kids trying to learn music, but it also though, you can see that development in those tapes that you're talking about in the recording year over year or week over week. I mean, that's an excellent way to present it, actually, Stephen, is to have and show those students at the end of the year if they feel that they. I don't know if I've progressed at all, and well, you can listen to the tape. We'll take it to the tape. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly. Well, it's really like for legacy, I guess. Like I'm super um super fortunate in music because for me, like it. Well, if you start being can make you super honest with yourself, but you can also
Yeah.
like when you said at the beginning, I was like people playing songs to please people, and so
Yeah.
when you had sent me a song to work on with Dave a while back, and I had talked to Dave about you quite a bit, like while we were recording and stuff, And I said, I hope he gets back to it. And then he sent that one, and your vocals are like just crisp. I was like, man, it's back. He's back at us. This is great. And then we, Dave and I almost never have time to work together like we used to, but that's what would be great. Like if you came over to the hotel when we're in Halifax, because he's bringing his recording portable system and everything, like all his stuff.
I'll say it here. You can count on it. Like, it's one of those things where it's a funny thing, Stephen. It's like I feel like for me personally, I feel like I'm coming into my own, and I know it's taken a long time to get there, and part of it has to do with finding your voice. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I was in a cover bands for so many years and covering other people,
Barnacle.
but yeah, exactly. Barnacle and all these other acts. And it's like, how do you actually, and people talk about that all the time. Like when you see these people on, trying out for award or not, like American Idol or something like that. It's like, you see them kind of copying other artists. And it's like, in the true artists there, I mean, that I'm not a big fan of that show or whatever, but whatever. It's showing a cross section of the community, but it's like the really true, the ones that I've always loved are the ones that are singing from their true self, and it's difficult because it's like, what do I have to offer? You know what I mean? It's almost like that feeling. It's like, well, if I sound like this, people are going to like it, but that's not really how I sound. And it's like dialing into your own voice is important.
We should do this a lot, because this is like a 4-hour discussion of all stuff I've been thinking of during the COVID regulations and stuff. So what you're saying there with the vocals and like leaving a legacy, like I'm super fortunate. My two sons, Reyes and Gaius. So Reyes is named, it's my wife's idea, named after my mother's last name. She was Puerto Rican. And Gaius is named after her favorite show and one of mine, of the reimagined Battlestar Galactica. There's a doctor on there, Gaius Baltar, that's absolutely insane, but just a brilliant actor in the role of being nuts. It's a fantastic show. And so I teach them. So they're at my school. I don't have Gaius for music yet. It changes because I'm the only teacher. So there's about probably 8 classes I don't teach in the school. So sometimes I'll have kindergarten one year. The last couple I've started grade 2 up. So I'll have him next year. He's in grade 2 this year.
Wow.
But I've had Reyes. So Reyes is in his first year of band on trumpet. But after school, they're with me till about 5:30, however long I stay. So like we do a thing where he works on the piano. He does a little tally of a little riff. He's working on the raindrop part in Riders of the Storm.
Oh yeah,
like that whole part.
That's so
cool.
Told
him, I said, we're not telling his mother. I said, you just sit down at the piano, because it starts way up and you can go all the way down with the whole pattern for the whole, if you want to do the whole thing.
Yep.
And then we do and it's so funny because I think this is why I love COVID. COVID forced your kids to stay with you and not realize, oh, I could be cool now and get some Popeye cigarettes and start acting cool. They didn't get that. So they're down here in grade 5, where it should be cool world, and we do scales on the piano, and then I get them to hold hands like Sound of Music. They don't realize that's so they just hold hands. Oh, they're doing that stuff. We go up the scale. So the legacy part is like you're getting to influence like my own kids and young people from the beginning to have like a relationship with music. Because for me, that's what it was. Like growing up, I grew up in a small town, Grand River, population probably 70-ish, and mostly 90% gray-haired people at the time. So like I spent a lot of times down in the basement, like be working out, playing table tennis, listening to music on a huge stereo loud. And my mother she had like 8 tracks. She got me really into a lot of good stuff at the beginning, Dionne Warwick. And
oh wow,
she had like it had to be how I got so hardcore into Miles Davis, because when she died, I went through the records. I'm like, that's why that sounded so familiar. And I found Sketches of Spain, a Dave Brubeck Take 5 album, and couple other Miles Davis, and I'm like, I don't remember seeing the covers of those ones, but they had to be on all the time, just seeping it in.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's like you can. I'm not really into like the Olympic part of. I thought I would be when I started, like all the shred stuff, which I still appreciate and like, but you can get really into the technique part. I'm more trying to help kids just develop a relationship with music. So when they have all the struggles that are happening now and coming up in their life and all the celebrations, they can have that relationship with music. And if they're not technically perfect, they can still functionally play an instrument.
Yes.
Enough to play at a campfire, enough to, and then it's up to them if they like. For me, it was like, oh, I learned that those 3 chords from Jeff and Corey and these guys. What if I learned another version, and then it just opened the door? And that's just my personality. Some people are satisfied. I got these versions. I'm playing these 50 cool country songs at a campfire, and that's great. I just like, I think I'm like, I feel like we're gonna run out of time. I'm not gonna get all the music into me or out to people that I want. It's also it. I used to be hardcore into hockey, and I was telling my son's class, I said, like, in hockey, you take 10 shots at the net, and the 11th one goes in, and yeah, they're losing it. You can't take 10 shots on the guitar, the piano, and then the 11th one. It's like,
it doesn't work that way.
It's like it should be close to bullseye each time. So when you're writing your own original, I've been like hardcore listening to. I love Cornell, so I'm learning. Zasani wrote about a bird crashing into his window. I just finished his biography. It's awesome. It's called Total Effing Godhead. That's the name of the biography.
Great name.
But it really got into his process where he wasn't like just a natural talent. Like he worked like a dog. And once they got some level of fame, Kim Thale of the band in the book says that he went hardcore. He realized, man, I could be like probably viewed like Robert Plant or something if I just put in the work, and he did. So when I'm listening to this one, it's called Like Suicide. It's about this bird that crashed into his window. It woke him up. He came out. Its neck was broken, and he dropped a book on it to put out its misery. So I never knew the song was about that. But the acoustic version I've been listening to every single. So when you write an original, every single choice of inflection, volume, no choice against the chord is showing your intent, and and then you got to present that like, hey, this is me with these choices. Do you think they're cool? Or I think they're cool. I don't care what you think. But if you really start thinking about it like that, that's a lot to present.
It is.
It's like a hardcore. Like I love watching cooking shows. It's like a chef that's really. And then someone goes, too much salt. You're like,
what do you mean? It's perfect. Well, it's a palette. I think you said it right, exactly right, Stephen. It's like that palette, and you're developing your own palette and style. And then sometimes that's, I mean, depending what band it is. I mean, the Doors went through that when they first came out. I mean, it was like people were like, "Who the heck are these guys?" I mean, this is outrageous. And even Led Zeppelin to a certain level on that side of it. It's like, I'm confident enough. I'm never going to know everything. I want to know everything, but the fact is I've got a limited time now. It's like, so how do you do what I guess what would be the measurement for you of I think I've done something right? Now, Junos would be one of them.
Yeah, it's like it's weird because like I have on my other side of the class here, I got lots of music books. I read all the bios and stuff, but I got tons of tab books off like classified sites, and just parents bring me in stuff, and they bring me in instruments that I wouldn't go out. I got a brand new banjo some parent brought me. Like I'd go and buy probably an amp first or something, but so I got, and the school is so supportive. I can get anything I want, like a new mic, any type of thing I'm really interested in. I can use it part of my budget. But for me, if something is sounding cool or right, it's usually like it just sounds like it was already there or something. So it'd be like I'll finish a song and be like, nah, I don't know, something's not clicking here, or and that's one thing that's I find harder writing alone, because when you're writing, and even that part, like you don't hear people talk about that too much in some interviews, but like when you're in a band, like it feels like we were just here like 10 minutes ago, and it's like 30 years ago we were roommates. But when you're in a band, you like it's so whacked. It's such a tether to each other all the time. So like you see like the band I was in Ending an Itch, Violent Lila, the girl moved beside my parents' house. I was in PEI, saw a girl walking up the road. I went, that's the other singer. I pulled over, and Lori thought I was going to hit her. And I said, no, I got out. And she's like, what? And she said, I grew up here. I didn't know she grew up beside my wife.
That's amazing.
And I was like, that's crazy. And then I was walking to a gig here, an outdoor gig out on the lake. And the drummer, Ian McIntyre, was just walking up the street, and he said his brother teaches at the other school. And I said, we're going to a gig like right now. Could you play? And he played cajon, and I haven't seen him since. It was just like, it's such a weird tether that you can have in sports if you were like the Edmonton Oilers from Gretzky's years. Like, but I think in music, like I'll talk to you guys on Facebook. I'll talk to Kevin Bohoyachuk, Leona Berkey, and it's just like we're still. It's like we're in our own little metaverse that we're all musical metaverse or something. And
Yeah.
so like I always like I'm sending out the tunes, putting them up, and I'm also like aware, like I play like kind of a grungy, more jazz fish band type of stuff, where people back home are playing like more maritime stuff in the bars and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for me is if I listen back with Dave, like me and Dave, he has a fantastic ear. Like you can tell if it pitches off a few cents. Like he's just and both our ears got so much better from recording.
Yes.
I can really hear time a lot better than I ever could. But we're sit there, and I remember one time he was doing a guitar solo for one of my songs, and I just walked in, and we had to start recording him during his warm up because usually that was the one that worked the best, and he didn't even know what he did.
That's
so we
crazy.
record him as soon as he plugs in. And one time it took 2 hours to get back to this, and I remember we're gonna give up, and I said, you know what, man, like every one you've just played is like really good. But if you can get back to the one that was like first one, and I was trying to sing it back to him, I said, no one else but you and I will really know it. But I said, I know that one is the right one. And he did. He got back. And I remember as soon as he did it, it was just a time thing. It was like, it's so weird. Our ears got so good, we could tell if something was off by a 64th note.
What?
And you could see it on Pro Tools, so you can move it back. And every time we hear something that doesn't sound right to us, we're like, it's a 64th, and we move it over, and then we play it. And we both just freak out because it's just you can. But then I thought about that could be a personal choice that's the type of music we like that is like that, like
Yes.
jam band stuff, and other people might not hear it or they might not. And then there's this could go on forever, but there's an honesty that where people are very surprised by my now it would be a playlist, but I probably own like 2,000 CDs. They're like, you like all these female artists? I'm like, yeah. I said Rain Maida, I got to interview him in Halifax in the 90s. And all he really said he listened to was like a lot of female artists. And it was very surprising to me at the time. And then Alice in Chains, I read interviews where they just listened to like church choirs and different things. But then when you get in, you realize that's not coming out obviously in their music overtly, but it is in there making them sound the way they sound.
Absolutely.
Rain made his things in a different way than the macho, like kind of guy.
I agree.
And I started to go like, I honestly like that way better, that because that's really sensitive and exposed. And that was a choice when I first wrote my first song that I didn't release yet. But I wrote a trilogy when my mother, before she died and afterwards. And one was called 1111. And in the song, the demo is like super honest, but I want to get it perfectly right for an album. And and that's like probably 10 years ago of just working on this tune, and I keep going back to it. But I was home one day and I worked on that song, and I said, what kind of style am I going to write in? Am I going to write in like which I like, I love Wayner, which is my guilty pleasure. He's a great musician, even though Beavis and Butthead destroyed him. But
it's
like,
so true.
Like a classical album that was nominated for like a Grammy, and the new he's on his own label, so it's all really good, like heavy stuff. But I was like, do I want to write from that kind of style, like ACD, like that kind of heavy style, or more of a sensitive combination with like, because really the grunge bands were that they
Yes.
came across with that heaviness, but they were really sensitive, and obviously way too sensitive because a lot of them took their own life and stuff. But so I went in that direction. That's a harder direction. Like that's you have to. It's a lot easier to just go kind of grunge.
Of course.
Really. But when you're putting out your feelings, and you're kind of
is it vulnerable?
Yeah, your view on these feelings, your view on topics and stuff, and people are. I think that's where the hip is really my kind of lodestar for that. Where they're a bar band, where Gord Downey pulled all these bar people through the bars and into his whole poetry world.
Yes.
Where they'd be like, how did I get here? I'm wearing a jean jacket. How did I go from some of the early songs on the first album or their second album, that everybody like up to here, people like, that's the bar band. And then how did I get to Scared on Fully Completely and 100th Meridian, and but it still seemed like a bar band. But you're like, because I know some people that won't listen to them pass up to here. And
Yes.
some people that I went along for the whole journey, even into his solo stuff. And I'm like, this is like a really sensitive, well-read, he was a well-read human that brought a general bar band type of crowd with him.
I think he raised the bar. Pardon the pun,
Yeah.
but he raised the bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When it comes to those bar bands transitioning into mainstream, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like he did it, and he did it through poetry.
Poetry and like reading Hugh McClellan, and brought in all this Canadiana type stuff into the topics and stuff. That's people that would be just like Cars and Girls and Motley Crue, girls, like got brought along with them. So super, I find that interesting, like to play against type and stuff. Like it's really, I find that those type of artists I find like super interesting.
My red stapler last evening. Would they
Oh.
please fix it? Thank you.